With the mentors that we asked to come on board for today, there is a wide range of expertise, and these are people who have been working. So I hope some of the projects will benefit from learning from people with real world experience. Sometimes in academic projects, we over dream and over veer off the path. So let's hope this goes well. So before we begin, I would like us to make some introductions. I think we can start with the students.
Good morning, everyone. I don't know if I can be heard clearly. Yeah. My name is Pauline Nassolo, and I am a second-year student at Uganda University, currently partaking in the Bachelor's of Environmental Design.
My name is Michael Ssempijja. I'm a current graduate at Uganda University and currently doing my internship in my country, Congo, DRC. Nice to be here. Thank you.
My name is Timothy. Timothy Michael Mchivi, third-year student at University.
My name is Namara Patience Yvonne. I'm in fourth year Matua University.
It's Becky Nisima. I'm a student at Chambogo, year 3.
My name is Hans Ronald. I'm a fourth year student of architecture at Makerere University.
So at this juncture, I am hoping the mentors can kind of introduce themselves. Twaha, the floor is all yours.
Okay, fine. My name is Twaha Kyomuhendo. I'm an architect. Just recently registered. I studied at Makerere, left in 2019, and have been a graduate architect for about four years. Then I practiced at a firm in Kampala called Regenesis, and I've been part of other engagements with other organizations, doing work in sustainable design, international collaborations, to do with teaching and divulging ideas in sustainable design, particularly with the Holcim Foundation. Yeah, and I'm really excited for this. I think it's a good opportunity for myself and for the students as well. Looking forward to the output from everyone.
Hi. Hi, everyone. Fine, thank you. My name is Edna. For those who don't know, Christine is actually my cousin. We studied in the same year. We did the same duration of architecture together. I'm a graduate architect, and I work as a project manager in Nairobi, Kenya. I am not a registered architect, and reason being, I'm a believer that architects can take up space in other fields. For example, the construction industry and the architecture industry are two sides of the same coin. So I ventured strictly into construction. So my entire path and career is an architect structured to work in construction. However, I will get registered eventually. So I believe my purpose in this mentorship is to give an alternative take on what the other options are there for you as an architect later, and maybe how some of the course units you're learning actually do build onto your career in something beyond the architecture industry. Yes.
Hi, everyone. My name is Ahairwebyona Monica. I am many things. But as of today, I will present myself as a graduate architect and educator. Okay, maybe for context then, I'm also an architecture photographer, and yes, I'm a bit of a person who has allowed myself to explore whatever presents itself as a gift to me. So yeah, I think it's important for me to say this because normally people go in certain spaces and they also find me there and then they're like, oh, but we didn't know anything like that. So I got to know about this recently, and I appreciate it deeply because I've had an opportunity to lecture with Christine, and yeah, we know why this extra time is relevant. So yeah, I hope I can be of value in whichever capacity I can. Thank you.
If you identify as a creative, she's your person.
Hi everyone, my name is Nassolo Pauline. I'm an architect, graduate architect with Ssempijja, Uganda. I graduated in 2021. Yeah, so I've been working there since then. I'm very excited for this opportunity to interact with the students. I've had a few previous engagements with students on site visits, and they're always interesting interactions. So I look forward to adding even more value in these mentorship programs. Yeah, I really don't have much to say at the moment.
Good morning to you all. How come I can't see myself?
You can see them.
Good morning to you all. Yeah, my name is Francis Ssempijja, and I'm first and foremost here because I'm a firm believer in Christine's ideas. So I'm here to support her. Yeah, and I'm a graduate architect. I work at Design Limited. I'm also a product designer and a professional model maker with Twaha FEA. Yeah, that's a company that I started with a few friends of mine, and we've been doing product design and model making for almost 10 years now. Yeah, so yeah.
So thank you guys. I think now we met each other. I don't think anyone that's at least formally part of the program hasn't been introduced. The mentors have met the students have met the mentors. So we are going to jump right into the topic that we are going to chat about today. So we've made our introduction. We're going to talk about bubble presentation. I think for the purpose of this, I am just going to suggest which mentor is going to talk about what, and then we move on from there. If a mentor has some like 2 cents to add to something, then they can always just kind of chip in with that. So we will start with mindset, and I think we'll start with Edna on that. How can your mindset affect your school time, your output, things of that nature? How would you comment on that?
Just like to draw experience from myself. I'm one of those people that from a very, very young age, I actually knew that I wanted to become an architect. And all that while, that focus and desire is what guided my mindset throughout campus. So from the time I was about 12, I knew I wanted to do this. So Edna's first hint was knowing what you want to do. I think that's the main thing that shapes one's mindset. I remember there was one of my toughest moments in school was in 3rd year. I think everyone contemplates quitting in 3rd year. I did.
Most people, 3rd year is the year when you think about your life. Really.
I think everyone contemplates quitting in 3rd year. And I remember very well, I was never a religious person, but that's the one time I tried to call on a deity for help. But what guided my mindset through steering that entire time was that I knew what I wanted. I knew in the end, I wanted to be an architect. So clarity of mind, I think, is the first thing that guides how you shape your mindset. Whether you're in school, whether you get out of school, and this clarity for me is what has been a driving factor throughout my career. Even when I left school, for example, I knew I wanted to go mainstream. I wanted to be an architect, like an architect gate. So all these other decisions that I was making were shaped by that focus. And that's what was guiding my mindset throughout. So even when people were saying, the registration process is hard, guys hate us, there's bad will, even if it were true. But, my mindset was, we need to get this done. This is your vision, this is the focus. It wasn't more of crying about how bad the issue was. It was about how to move forward and try to achieve the goal I wanted to achieve. So I think clarity of knowing what you want is the first thing you have to have in order to shape your mindset. It's like a concept in design, really. If you have a clear idea of what you want to achieve, that's a concept. That's you want to create a certain kind of vision. All these other decisions you make, your mind just aligns to that. So I would say, with regards to mindset, as a student, try to find yourself and try to know what you want, like actually know, and as detailed as possible.
Did you ever reach a point where even telling yourself that you have to be an architect wasn't working?
Yes. And it's also good to question yourself. It's also good to keep re-examining your mindset. I did question whether I really wanted to pursue mainstream. For many reasons, architecture is a hard business. Entry-level salaries are really low. Inflation is biting, growth, girlfriend, family pressures, So I did doubt it, but because I knew what I wanted, like literally, and I had tried out a few different things, but I felt my body and my mind was comfortable in mainstream practice, and I felt that is where I could deliver the most impact. I know you're talented at teaching. I don't know if I'll be so good at that, Edna's headed out into construction and people doing all sorts of things. I felt more comfortable in mainstream practice. And for me, I looked at the long game and I realized, even if I try to create a cheat code for myself or try to get something quick, this is ultimately what I want. So I decided to follow through.
Let's sit down and do the thing.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you, Twaha. I don't know if Edna is ready now.
I'm back, guys. So back to mindset. We thank Twaha for his insight. So yes, I did say you do need to know what you want to do, but you also need to know what your capacity is in terms of mindset. It's good to dream, but sometimes you need to do a SWOT analysis on yourself. Understand your strengths, your weaknesses, where there's opportunities for you to change, and what is just not your line of thought. So right from the beginning, I always knew what I just did not want to do. By the time I was joining architecture school, I come from a family where we have a strong engineering background, and I was just like, that is just not the path I am taking. So it was just a whole defiance thing from the beginning. That was my mindset from the beginning. I was just like, we're defying the norm. There's this thing called architecture. We are going to find out what is in there. So my mindset from the beginning has been to explore the unknown. So I come into architecture school. First year, they're telling you, oh, we don't design plans. We do pictures of people, pictures of trees. It took a while to adjust. Fortunately, I had a background in art, so I was just like, we'll survive this one. But this is looking like a scam to me. So eventually, you get to know what architecture is. You start to think if this is the thing for you, then you have to make a decision. One thing about mindsets is you need to know that you are allowed to change your mindset. So depending on how you have entered something, you're allowed to take in the information that's available to you, and then you're allowed to make a decision and decide, is this the route I'm taking, or can this be adjusted along these routes? Most people had their eureka moment in third year. I had mine in second year. I met a teacher and I was just like, am I meant to be in this school? Because you find that some of our teachers who are assigned as our supervisors don't carry the same line of thought as you do. However, those are the teachers you have to work with. So you find yourself having to change your mindset to work with the people who are assigned to you, because mindset matters for the greater mindset. So when we get to third year, we're introduced to building services. That's when I was like, aha, I actually like this architecture thing, because now they're talking about things that actually interest me. So then you find that my mindset starts to get clearer, because as they introduced more things about architecture, I started to see the different opportunities that were available to me just by doing this course. So when they introduced building services, I was like, I actually like this. When they introduced structures, I was like, I'm in love with this. That's when I started to understand what my strengths were, what my weaknesses were, and what my opportunities were in this course of architecture. By the time we were getting to our fourth year, then again, they introduced interior design. I was like, what in the world are these people talking about? I'm not interested in the detail of a space. I'm not interested in this. But later, fast forward to right now, I actually do interior design in Nairobi, because I'm a project manager. You have to have a show house. You have to make sure you display your skills as an architect. You find a growing to like things much later than when you anticipated. So it took my mindset having to frog leap through construction to actually find an interest in something that I was taught 8 years ago. So your mindset is allowed to change, it's allowed to adapt, it's allowed to adopt, it's allowed to absorb whatever you are experiencing in your life path. Because at the end of the day, architecture is for life. Because you started this journey, you're going to have to live through it. And by the time we were graduating, I was among the people who was just like 50 plus 1, let's go, because you're just tired. But at the end of the day, I did work. My mindset from the beginning was, I will never have bad marks. I will make sure I'm the best. I may not be the best in the class, but I will give my best. That was the whole mindset I moved through it. So you will never be the best in whatever industry you are in. If you are the best, fortunate for you, but the rest of us may not be the best. But giving the best that you have is the best thing you can do for yourself. And that is all about your mindset right from the beginning. So you're allowed to change your mindset. You're allowed to customize your career as you go. You are allowed to be an architect who is a project manager. You're allowed to be an architect in the product design space. You're allowed to be a policymaker who is an architect. You are allowed. So that's the thing about mindset. You are not restricted. You are allowed. Okay? And that's my stuff.
I think they're good with that. It's so surprising that the things that made me question architecture school are the ones that kind of egged you on. That's interesting. And the irony is that in the beginning you were like the strong engineering background is what you ran away from, and it's kind of what you're doing right now. So life has a
very interesting, right?
Yeah, life is funny like that. Okay, thank you, Edna, and for all of you who are listening and who are wondering about the whole, oh my God, school sucks right now, or even for our fellow people who are in practice and you're wondering, oh my God, this sucks. I guess we can take the advice of Edna and Twaha. Like, what do you actually want at the end of the day? And just tighten that seatbelt and get it done. Or pivot if you really see it's not working. I guess that's the advice we've got. So that's that on mindset. So we can move on to something else that's really, really interesting to me, and that's burnout. And for this, maybe we can have Francis and Pauline talk to us a little bit about burnout. What happens when you burn out? What leads to burnout? At which point do we realize, okay, this is enough and maybe I should take 5? How do you even take that 5? Maybe Pauline can go first.
So burnout. I would say in school, okay, right now in the work environment, there's this whole thing of the work-life balance, and you have to find a way of managing work with your personal life. So you try to fix in a few things, like if it's working out, that works for you. If it's hanging out with your friends, that works for you. Or if it's just finding some time by yourself. But when I was thinking about this whole thing, I was like, in art school, like working out, it felt like the whole work-life balance felt like a luxury. Like art school is your life. There's no way around it. But one of the things that I really thought about was you need to have those. Sometimes you feel like if you take time away from portfolio, you're going to it feels like you're wasting time. But you need to have those if I die, I die moments. Like if we are going from let's go for that movie, let's just go and see somewhere. Like you just need to switch off until after those terrible presentations. You need to have those moments where you're like, man, if I die, I die. Like you just jump in and you just do it. Because at the end of the day, you really need to clear your mind and sort of the thing that you are talking about mindset. You need sometimes your mind, you need to clear your mind and sort of like pivot and be like, okay, so this is what I presented, this is what they said. Sometimes in that moment it feels so overwhelming, like, no, what am I going to do? How do I move forward from this? And it feels like there's no way forward, but you need to give yourself some time to like pivot. So the thing about burnout, you really need to know yourself, like what works for you and what are those moments that really you feel like they fill your cup. For me, it was always Sunday afternoons. I would just close the books, leave the laptop at home at campus, and I would just go home. Because sometimes you go home, they don't even know what you're talking about, portfolio or anything. They just know you had a presentation. And yeah, when you say portfolio, everyone gets an idea of what portfolio is. They don't really know what it is, but yeah, you just be there, you hang out, you laugh a bit. Sunday afternoon, yeah, Monday morning, you get back in it and you go back to trying to figure it out. But yeah, at school, I would really say keep your friends close, try to work as much as possible with other people in studio, exchange ideas, look at different people's projects. It really helps to push you forward. And sometimes your friends can tell when you're like sort of stuck, and it can really give you the momentum that, or just be able to look at something differently. Yeah. In terms of work, sometimes when you're at work, I feel like you can easily get carried away with the whole deadlines. Okay, I need to send one more email. Let me just get this done. Let me just push till 8. You keep, like, for example, actually, I went through this week because I was telling myself, you can just one more email, just one more thing. And then at the end of the day, you're in the hospital checking if you have malaria and they can't find anything because your body has just decided to shut down. So when it comes to burnout, you need to be you really need to be proactive, and you need to be able to identify certain things, like if something ticks you off that ordinarily wouldn't, or if you find yourself getting snappy, or you're getting irritated about certain things that you wouldn't usually. But you need to take a moment and reassess and be like, okay, I could have handled this differently. And you start to notice that there are certain patterns to when the burnout is coming, when it's coming for you. So yeah, that's about it about burnout. But it's about being proactive. You need to have a certain schedule or a certain routine that really fits into you. In as much as you need to put in the work hours at work, certain things like interacting with friends. Of course, right now in the whole work thing, everyone is busy, so you need to sort of schedule time with your friends and be like, "Are you free on this day? We need to meet." So you need to be more keen about moments like that. It can be like an hour or two out of your day, but it can make a big difference on how you're able to just cope with life. Yeah, that's what I can say.
I saw a quote somewhere and it said, what people are calling self-care is actually aftercare. They don't do anything before, and it's when shit has hit the fan. That's when they're like, okay, well, now let me buy a candle. Right? You're supposed to dealing with things as they are coming.
Yes.
Meanwhile, in all this, Monica is a very huge proponent for self-care. I've been seeing her videos and she's working out at 11 p.m. in the night. I don't know if after a bad day at work, I'm going to start doing it. Self-care be damned. Twaha says, there is this culture we all have in the industry, including school, where we have these invisible badges of honor for suffering. Yes, my God. Be it working long hours or sacrificing everything for the project. I think this is one of the root causes of burnout to both students and professionals. And for me, at least to my students, I keep preaching that whole thing where you work till 4 in the morning, I feel is completely unnecessary if you manage your time properly. Well, I don't know.
I just wanted to add something about that. Nothing you said about working till 4 in the morning. I feel like after art school, looking back now, I actually feel like it was not necessary. Like if you're able to get enough hours of sleep, you get your okay. It might not be enough, might vary for everyone, but you get your sleep, and then you put in the work during the day. But I feel like one of the challenges that comes in during art school is there's a point where you get and you start to like second guess your ideas, and you're going back and forth, and then you end up losing time. But I don't know how what the way around that would be. But when I was looking back on my like school time, I felt like I lost a lot of time doing that, going back and forth, being uncertain of ideas, and just having that thing of, hey, me, I slept at 4, me, I slept at 3. And looking back now, I was like, that wasn't even, it's not healthy. Like Twaha was saying, like it's glorified to be like, oh, me, I slept at this time. But it's actually, it doesn't help, and it's not necessary. Because I know some people who would get their sleep and they would come and present. You just need to get your thoughts organized. I don't know how to put it, but sometimes you just need to, when you get an idea, you need to go with it and execute it to your very best. Like it might not, because sometimes I feel like you'll be waiting to have the best idea, which is not going to happen. But once you have an idea, go with it and really dive into it and execute it to your very best. It helps as opposed to wasting time looking for other better ideas, or because the thing about art school, it's time bound. Like you have a presentation, you have a presentation. So Yeah,
Thing is, if you show up to your presentation late because you're trying to work till 6 in the morning, and then you can't talk about your work, which is, you can have the nicest work, but if you can't talk about what you've done, then usually it just goes left really, really badly. So sleep. Monica has something to say.
Thank you very much. Of course, this is a topic I feel for very passionately, and I would just want to rationalize the requirement of working out at 11 p.m. So, and maybe just give a bit of what's really happening in our bodies. So, one of the things that is happening is that architecture is a field that is mind centered. So, you're constantly using your mind, and all these thoughts that you're having with yourselves and conversations. So definitely stress is a factor, and you're going to be producing the stress hormones like the cortisol. So when you engage in physical activity, because trust me, like you said, logically speaking, at like if you left office probably at 8, well, I'm still those people who are trying to figure it out, because you were like trying to put in extra hours and stuff like that. The last thing you really want to be told is, okay, do some workouts, lift some weights. But the thing is, what the body in itself, okay, I feel like I'm preaching, but I feel like I need to explain what's happening. The body in itself is like a machine, and there are certain things that you're going to do to your machine. For instance, your PC, as students know it, you're going to refuse to shut down that PC, and it's going to wake up one morning and just shut down on its own. So you start to learn that, okay, fine, I know I don't want to shut down, but I have to shut it down so that when I open it tomorrow, it's operational properly. So when you engage your physical body, you're able to like produce other hormones that counteract the cortisol that you produce when you're stressed. That's like the endorphins and serotonin. Most people are getting these hormones through uh someone talked about like us meeting friends, like when you have those conversations with friends and like interaction, other people have to drink, other people have to smoke. But when your body actually goes into like that muscle contraction and everything, it counteracts itself, and like the neurons are pulled from your mind, and now it's like the body that takes charge. So because it's like a mind-centered practice, we have this, like, you're going to sleep and your mind is going to still be processing the thoughts you're having throughout the day, but actually having that physical workout sort of like breaks that process. And even when you go to sleep, even if it's like for the 6 hours, they're like proper 6 hours, because you sort of like uh jump started your body out of that whole 12 hours that you were doing the whole mind thing. So it's just one of those things where you're like, I don't want to do this, but I know what's going to happen if I don't do it. Because, yeah, so anyone out there, please, even if you can walk around your office, yeah, it will like really help to remove the whole process from your mind. Yeah, so that's the whole. I thought if I share like the logic behind, maybe you'll be inspired to do it when you're tired. Yeah, thank you.
About all that, but we shall try. For now, we get our steps in, and that's all we are going to do. But hopefully, at some point, we'll take it seriously enough that we can do that.
I wanted to start my discussion from the mindset issue. I think we underestimate the power our peers have over us. And most of us are peers, our friends and people around us. So I think for us to have, apart from just knowing what you want to do, like Edna and Twaha said, or having your mindset to that one thing that you want to achieve, I think also having people that align with that, or we either influence the people around us or they influence us. So I think that whole mindset discussion has to also, that the idea of peer is very important to the people around you. So as you're looking for that mindset to go through art school, also look for the people that align with that kind of thinking, that goal that you have. Look for those people who align with that goal that you set yourself. So it gets easier as you go to art school. And it also goes with burnout. I think, like Pauline said, those moments with friends really helped in architecture school. Because I remember there will be times when the presentations were not good, but then you step out with friends and go somewhere and it gets a bit easier. And also, friends really help during school, because they may see things that the tutors never saw, but Christine knows she may not see something today, But next time she comes back, she brings it up, and then it becomes a stress point for the student. So if your friends maybe go through your work, they can see those things early enough for you to change them, and they can also help you get through the whole situation of architecture school. Yeah, so it's important to get people who align with your goals, and also and they will help out in those times, because the burnouts will be there, no doubt. Yeah, but how do the people around you relate? I will talk about those things. Do they just make it worse and tell you, hey, you have to experience that, or do they help you out in going through them? Yeah.
So Francis says, surround yourself with people with sense, people who align with the goals that you have, essentially. Okay, thank you. So from this particular segment, we've learned that you should pick something to do that helps you de-stress. Don't wait for things to come crumbling down in order to try and salvage the situation. So finally, for this little chat session, I want the mentors to give us advice on verbal presentation. How do we prepare for verbal presentations? What are the tips that you use? etc, etc. I'll go first, especially for the students. That hesitation in the beginning, that fear, it just reduces, and eventually you kind of find out that, I don't know, it's just 30 minutes of talking. In my case, you have to talk for 2 hours plus, but you realize it's just 10 minutes, it's just 2 hours. After that, you'll go home and do your own things. Like, you don't die from speaking publicly. I feel like half the issue is we're so concerned with how people are going to perceive us that you end up not saying the things that you intend to say. So yeah, just tell yourself you're not going to die from that experience. Maybe these other guys can tell us how. Actually, I'm really, really curious, because when you're working, the stakes are very, very different. Now you're not presenting just to get a grade. Now your rent literally depends on how you talk about your things. So maybe they can give us some tips on how they present, any advice for those who struggle with presentation, things like that.
Thank you very much. For verbal presentation, I think it was Paula who was talking about how I don't think translating was that deep, but one of the things that you will need to appreciate probably is the fact that it actually really does get better over time. And once you show up, I'm constantly telling people how one of the things that I've realized about architecture is that it's as if the most relevant part we had of our architecture school was nursery school, because nursery school was the last time that you were allowed to think freely and you were evaluated based on what your thoughts are. And then you come P1 to S6, and it's now a whole assembly chain of garbage in, garbage out. So you're coming to ARC school where they're like, oh, okay, we understand that you are used to me coming in front of you and telling you what I want to hear you saying next time. And trust me, it's going to take a lot of breaking, like a lot of learning and unlearning, because you're like, what do you mean? For instance, probably your mind is used to, I will cram what they've said and then reproduce. Now in a state where you've been given, you almost self-examine, because you're just given a blank statement and it's you who decide that I'm going to approach it in this way. So for a student to now change their mindset from a place of, I say what I am told in the way that they said it, in the way that they want to, I feel like there is always that desperate thing that students do, like whereby now they start to adapt to, okay, so Miss Matua says this is what I will say. Okay, Miss Monica, she probably likes like environmental stuff and everything. I'm going to say those things. One thing that I can honestly say when it comes to presentation is that you're the only person who knows your project 100%. Like, I think now that I have been on the lecturing end, I have learned that I only know as much as the student has told me, because, okay, fine, I am actually going to tell you, do this, present your concept like this and everything. But like, the focus is almost going to be on what you've mostly highlighted. And this is why, like, you're going to see it's not a good thing, because at the end of the day, architecture is a visual practice. And I keep on saying to, like, drawing to architecture is the way you see ABCD in writing. So once your visuals are saying a lot, now your verbal is going to be complementary. And a lot of these things are things I learned from Francis. Yeah, I was fortunate that he really took me through, because when you're from Chambogo, the technical part, like I think we're supposed to be like civil engineers or something. So yeah, basically I can tell you to be confident in what you have researched. You're the only one who watched all those YouTube videos. If you're doing probably a practice about maybe like mental health, for instance, and you're looking at case studies and everything, you know what you saw, especially if you're not lying, because there's some people who lie. And yeah, so be confident to actually share that. So yeah, I've said a lot, but I hope that you can pick out what I've said, what I've from all that. Thank you.
What she said is really, really true. We usually, okay, from the lecturing side of things, we don't really know everything, but we can squeeze you based on the things that you've said. And sometimes it takes us a little bit longer to interpret your project. So just kind of pick the things you're going to say to sell your project.
Now, I'm going to bring in a different perspective from how architects deal with clients and presenting to them, be it design concepts or even pitching to them, like before you even do anything. For me in school, I never had challenges with presentation, because at school it seems a bit, forgive me if I'm wrong, theatrical, like you're just trying to present something. You get, like you said, there are no repercussions beyond a grade, but in practice it is very, very, very sophisticated. It's far, far worse. Actually, you should really try to hone your skills while you're in school, because in practice there are so many variables. But I would say through the different experiences I've had, the first thing I would say, if you're going to present to a client, I'm not speaking as an architect dealing with clients in the field, you need to be prepared. So by preparation, if you're pitching for the first time, you do your research, you know the person, you understand their business, if it's a business entity. You try to know who they are, you know, the relationships they hold, the things that may be dear to them, you know. And when it's that first encounter, it's important for you to listen, and both in silence and in trying to understand. You get, not hear, but listen. You get it? So that can work as well for students, even before you step on to present your project. You need to listen to the requirements of the project, listen to the tone of your lecturers, where they may be leaning to. And I don't mean this in a psychological, like trying to understand what they're trying to communicate to you. You get it? So listening is an important part of that process of presentation, because from listening is when you know how to approach this particular presentation, you know. So then now in practice, it brings in the idea of knowing your crowd. I've been in different presentations where we are presenting to a businessman who has a daily turnover of, say, 50 million, you know, and wants to put up a mall. And I've been in another situation where you're in a board of these very learned individuals, guys with doctorates, and they all have different intentions. They all have different goals for the project, and you have to find a middle ground. The two different crowds, the approaches are different. It's totally different. For example, I found with a business person we worked with, for him, he wanted things to be as simple as possible for himself. So when we were communicating, we were not trying to prove to him that we were smart. Yeah, you know, which was different from when we were at a board of a medical facility where these guys are actually looking out to see whether you have a certain level of aptitude, you know. So with a businessman, he was seeking for us to communicate clearly. What does it take? You know, don't go into the building code of what, you know, you're trying to speak, even if it means speaking in that vernacular, you get it? So that they can be comfortable and the communication line is clear, you get it? So knowing your crowd is very, very important. It's the same for you students as well. You have to know your tutors, because I remember when we were in school, there were certain tutors that did not like certain things. Yeah? And sometimes you really need to understand that, and know that when you're talking to this Dr. So-and-so, he prefers this kind of approach, and you tailor it to that, honestly. The other is be very intentional in what you're communicating, and what is important for you to communicate. So when we're in the board meeting, I will just say it anyway. It was for a project with Joint Clinical Research Center, JCRC. We had to be very intentional to what we're presenting to them. The different board members had different areas they were focusing on. One was a very technical person, so they wanted to know how the lab was working. So in all our presentation, we had to explain and make sure that the people or that person understands that we know how this lab works. The other board members were typically interested in cost and budget. Again, so if you go in a crowd where people are interested in budget and you're speaking to them about how amazing the space is, you won't convert. That's the truth. Again, you have to know your crowd and understand and be intentional that in this presentation, we are seeking to, one, present and make sure that they understand that we know how the lab works and they understand it too. Two, that they know the cost implications of the designs we have made and the decisions that we have made. So intentionality is key. Then I'd say in the end, even with school and in practice, sometimes when you talk too much, people can catch your bullshit. Like they will see that you cover up something. And in school, it's really bad because I really knew some teachers that didn't like students that were overly talkative. Sometimes I know you talk too much because you want to really clear out all the things that you must say, but be intentional. If you have the big picture, try not to drag the talking, because then it will always tire out and make it look like you're trying to impress, yet you should be communicating. Yeah.
I'd like to add, and maybe okay, I think now like the lecturer in me is overcoming out. But it's something where like I think he talks about where you need to understand your audience, and I can see the rationale in that deeply. Please understand your audience. But also like as a former student who came from a background that heavily appreciated the technical, and yet I was more on the end of Christine said, if you're looking for like a creative or you identify as that, please look for me. As someone who also really valued that side of design, I think like it's something that I was trying to say, whereby the student tries to trim themselves as per the lecturers in front of them. So it's very important, and it's a skill that you'll appreciate when you're out here. But the risk of that is that there is also a risk of like losing yourself, first of all, because at the end of the day, like I think some of my students that I've seen here, I'm always asking you, we need to see like architecture here in your work. Like at the end of the day, if you're going to produce what exactly I asked you for, probably, which is very ironic, is that you're going to be those people, and I think we see it a lot in our practice. Okay, I can't speak about practice. We see it a lot in our designs where we have things that exactly work. Like they work properly, you experience this design, but there is nothing more it's offering. And so in as much as you have to study your crowd, you also have to, because it's also a whole process of discovering who, like your voice, because like you've seen most of us here, right? People in project management, people into academia and practice, people into practice. So if you're going to now focus on only trimming yourself by who is in front of you, the chances of you actually finding your own voice are now going to be dumbed down. And why I was giving an example of like Chambogo, especially when it's one of those things where you have to know what is required of you, because I think for those who attended, like one of the things I understood was, okay, fine, in Chambogo you have to know how something is built. Yes, we appreciate your concepts and everything, but if you're not going to tell us how the water is going to leave your roof to the gutters, we are not interested. So I understood that part, and I'm like, fine, this is a very core part of this training. But at the end of the day, there is also, because I used to attend a lot of charrettes and like a lot of these design events, which I honestly advise every student to do, because this is the most time you're going to have, and I appreciate this very deeply. I saw a lot more that architecture could be, but rather than, because I used to be that student who would be so frustrated, and I'm like, why aren't I at Makerere? Like, I see my friends, they have these beautiful concepts. You guys are just telling us to give you details, you know? But the moment I reached a point and I was like, okay, fine, asking us to tell them how something is built is also a vital part of design. I'm like, fine, I'll give you that. But I know that in also this, what is going to be built has to have like a story. It has to have a connection to the people. It has to have, you know, when you interact with all these other practices, then you end up being in a situation where you're like offering a holistic presentation. There are things that they're not going to ask for. Of course, figure out how to blow out the things you're really sure that they want to see, but like allow yourself to also grow in these other parameters, because when you leave school, school is not Chambogo, school is not IUES, school is not, you know, MOOC. Now you're being judged on like a holistic front. But if you only align yourself according to what your lecturers value, which is sometimes very they're like pockets of different situations, you're going to be doing yourself a disservice. So in short, yes, understand your crowd, but also it's more hard work, because you know you're doing something that they are not interested in. But one thing that I saw is that the people who did exactly what was required, those are the people who are always swimming in the 50s and 60s. Like the most you're going to get is like a 60, because everyone is like, okay, we appreciate you have everything we have. But like the student who's like, okay, I understand, because there is a risk of some students feeling like, oh, we don't, where you feel like what the person is offering is not relevant, you're doing yourself a disservice. When you tell the person, yes, I have this, a full dome house, or like I have this house that looks like these sharp knives, and I can actually show you the foundational detail, the connections and stuff, then now they're like, oh, okay, now we can actually start to appreciate the other part. So a holistic presentation, guys. Thank you so much.
I don't know, for everyone that I know it makes sense to be like, oh, today I'm presenting to Christine and Christine likes concept, so therefore let me focus on concept. There's a reason why, especially design panels, are more than one person, so that you can have, you can display your understanding of different subjects. So for me, my advice is, even if you know Christine likes concept, that's where she leans to. I think you should focus on because every presentation has like key areas that they want you to cover. So they want you to cover, let's say, concept, and then the structural aspects and environmental aspects, etc. So even if Christine doesn't lead towards the environmental aspect, by the time she's there on that class, she probably knows something about that. So don't completely omit that stuff because you're trying to buy your way into her heart. I don't know, that wouldn't be wise completely. So there are some comments that have been said. Oh, Twaha wanted to add, do not glorify the grind, guys, please sleep, okay? Stacia says, I believe that putting in the effort and dedicating sufficient time to your project is crucial. Doing the work will help you build confidence, and this confidence will be evident in your paperwork. True. Tutors will be able to recognize the effort you've invested. Even if you cannot present the project effectively, your paperwork will support you. And I think I can speak for everyone who teaches like this. It's very, very difficult to dismiss the work of someone that has clearly spent time on their project. The trick comes when you're there, you have no work, everyone who can't speak. I had to get sympathy that way. To close this part with a mentor speaking, I had wanted to get Edna's point of view as someone who lives like familiar territory and goes to kind of charter her own ground somewhere else. What are the things that you had to kind of encounter in that kind of space? What did you realize about presenting yourself differently? Did you even have to change, or you're already that chick? Edna.
Just to supplement on the previous mentors, one thing we always do in architecture school is we'll always get the documentation right. However, we tend to forget how to deal with the narrative. The narrative is the story you're going to tell your tutors. It's the story you are telling to whoever you're presenting your work to. So we spend so much time in our heads speaking to ourselves and documenting the work. We rarely take a moment to stand back and say, if I was presenting this to people who understand what I'm saying, how would I communicate this? If I was communicating to people who do not understand, what I'm trying to communicate, how would I do this? So one of the tricks one of our classmates used to do was she would prepare a whole document just to communicate what she's trying to say. And as she prepare it, you'd start to see that she starts to identify things she shouldn't talk about, things she should highlight, things that she felt were identifying the key areas of her ideas, the key areas of her project. And then you'd start to see that her work would be structured in a certain format. So I adopted some of those methods in first to fourth year. When you go to fifth year, because the pressure becomes so intense, you start to focus on producing the work. You get burnt out in the process. And then when you come to present your work to the tutors, you're just a burnt out fellow in front of them. So as much as, yes, Tasha did recommend that doing a paperwork will get you something, it got me 50+7 in my final year because I struggled with presentation because of burnout. Had I actually taken some time back, looked at my work and said, okay, fine, I feel like this is enough. Let me build on the narrative. I feel I could have done better because I just took a moment, took a breather and said, this 1 hour can't help me. Let me use this 1 hour to take a cup of tea, just stare at my work and talk to myself out loud. There is beauty in speaking out loud. Somebody in the next room from your dorm might think, oh my goodness, this person is mad in that room. But remember, speaking out loud does help a lot than speaking to yourself in your mind. Now, moving to Nairobi was part of a development process, a personal development process. Because once I got out of school, I think I worked for only one architect. It was an 8-month job. And I sat in there and self-reflected on my last month and asked myself, is this really what I want to do as an individual? Surprisingly, I was working with Priscilla Namwanje, if you've heard of her. She's the person who is into urban development for low-cost housing and things like that. That's how you know you can be in the same career path and then deviate. Her passion for low-cost housing drives her in the course of action she decided to take. I sat in there and said, this is not for me, because by then our principal architect was into the field she was focusing on. And then I woke up one day and said, this is not what I want to do. I started to discover myself as a person, because also learning what your personality is key in understanding how you venture into the world. So when I realized I'm not the kind of person who's going to sit in the office, I do like climbing those buildings. I do enjoy understanding how the concrete is cast. I love how things come together to build all the concepts all the architects are trying to do. I enjoy that process. That's when I made a conscious decision to now move strictly into construction. So eventually my path 3 years down the road led me to an opportunity in Nairobi, because by that point in time, I'd been engaging with a particular community that is key on investing in construction. That's the Somali community. So those are the people who actually were like, we have an opportunity in Kenya. We are trying to build a project. It's 20 stories plus and things like that. And I was amazed. I was just like, who gives a young girl like me? I was 28 by the time I left. I was like, who gives a 20-year-old a 20-story project? That is impossible. And I was just like, you like to explore the unknown. Let's go do this. So one of the things construction teaches you is you will be talking and talking and talking until you cannot talk anymore. So you come from career path where you only need to explain to your clients what you are presenting, what kind of project you have envisioned based on the interactions you've had. You move to construction, you're dealing with the lawyers, you're dealing with the consultants where the architect is also inclusive of those consultants. You are speaking to your QS because your QS is in charge of the financials. You are speaking to your own staff, because fortunate enough for me, I am in operations, project management, construction management. So you have to now start building the teams that you want to work and achieve the goal you're trying to achieve. So you find you're going to meet different kinds of people with different backgrounds, some of whom have not even studied what positions they are filling in at the moment. So you need to now start becoming a mentor to everyone in your office, a mentor to your own boss. You also become a legal representative of your own boss. So you find that each time you are communicating something. So you don't have time to now sit and prepare slides. The career alone starts to drive you in the direction of building your own personal public speaking skills. Then you'll need to know when you need to be a red in personality, when you need to be a yellow, when you need to be a blue, because now you start to understand who the audience of what you're communicating is. So you find that my boss is somebody you have to communicate as a blue, because the moment you turn a red on him, it is over. Whatever you're communicating will not be accepted, and he'll walk away and leave you as like where you are, and you are stranded at a point where you need a decision to be made. So understanding your audience is very key. and understanding how to communicate to each of those audiences is very important. And then as you go on, you also need to learn how to build yourself as a personal brand, that a personal communicating brand, because now you find in construction, you're just the forefront of everything. So leaving Uganda did actually help me, because I started to learn things about myself I didn't know was there. Started to learn that maybe I am actually a red in personality. I used to think I was a green, found out I'm a red. I'm a very vicious person. I'm a very angry person. So I always tell people at work that I am the anger voice for my boss. So if you go thinking my boss is going to give it to you, he's going to communicate his frustrations to me, and I will actively communicate this to you in the best way you understand. So yes, moving to Nairobi did help. And I do recommend that many of you do try to step out of your comfort zone. It does help, because you need to see what else is out there in the world of architecture beyond the streets of Uganda, and see what person you can evolve into when you get out here.
Okay. What would you advise someone who is, I don't want to say timid per se, but you know, those people who can't really speak in front of an audience, and yet they have actually, by the time you're aiming to be an architect, you're aiming to be a team lead. So
Yes.
what advice would you give such a person?
Sometimes we do need to accept that there will be timid people. We all can't be red. We all can't be blue. The thing about timid people is they now need to start to identify what spaces in the field work for them. So you might be a timid person, but you can partner with a more bold, more assertive person to now go forward with life. We all that way it's easier for you to work, because you can't completely drastically change someone. It is who they are. Even if they did go for public speaking, critical skills thinking classes, if that is who they are, I'm an advocate for not changing people. I'm just looking for roots that actually accentuate your timidness. So if you're timid, accept your timidness. Maybe there is a strength in being timid. You just need to find out what exactly that strength is. So, and then you begin to focus your strengths in the areas that work for you. So if you feel like timid is difficult, you're going to have to really go into your paperwork, trust the process of that paperwork, so that when you're presenting to your teachers, if I were you, prepare a document so that you also guide your thoughts. You can read off it. You can write key points that you can highlight as you go, and don't stretch yourself to be like the next person. The next person is who they are. If they are better than you, well and good. But what can you give that is the best of you? That way you're not competing, you're just focusing on strengthening what is actually good for you. What are the good key qualities in you? And as one of the mentors said, you don't want to lose yourself. The key is yourself. The timid you is yourself. What is glorious about this timid version of yourself? Find that person and communicate that person. Yeah.
So thank you to all of the mentors. This has been a really good chat, I guess. I'm hoping the students have picked something. Even me, I'm picking something from this whole thing. I don't know if we can take maybe one or two questions. So Arnold here is commenting that understanding who you are will prepare you to impact the global architectural world. That's very true.
Christine, I have a question. Very many times, the biggest question I ask myself during presentations is, how do I balance the pressure to present with the need for me to communicate to the people I am presenting to, so they can learn from my project? Because at times you find that you already have seeing your friend in front and he or she is receiving comments, and now you're starting to test whether what you did was right, whether your narrative is structured the right way. So how do you balance the pressure and also the fact that you have to actually stand up and then communicate to the people that are judging your work?
Hi, Paul. So I hope I've gotten your question correct. You were asking about how to balance the pressure to present with sticking with your narrative of what you have prepared to present. I think one of the key things about presentations is, first of all, have the information that the tutors have requested for. There's always that outline of what you're meant to present. Make sure you tackle at least, I would say, 60% of what is on that list. Now, ideally, by the time you come to present, I would say, I'll just reiterate some of the things that have been said before. Be confident in your project. If someone else is presenting and there's a comment they get that you feel you don't have that in your project, from my experience, I would say, don't try to to fix something that is not there, because people can tell when you're just fixing a last minute idea and it probably doesn't fit into your presentation, but now that you had it on the previous one, you now want to come and find where to fix it in your project. I would say the main things, be confident in your project. Like Monica said, you're the one who knows your project 100%. So prepare. I would say rehearsing helped me a lot. So just being able to knowing what your talking points are, know what the key points in your projects are, and be able to point out those key issues sometimes. But when it comes to the presentation pressure, I would say it doesn't really help when you're just trying to fix if let's say you listen to 20 presentations and there are as many comments, are you then going to try to insert all those somewhere? At the end of the day, you're going to lose the flow of maybe what you've prepared to present or something like that. So if it's something that you can hint on, that's well and good, but the bigger picture, I would say just focus on what you've prepared, rehearse your presentation, and be confident. Confidence is the main thing. That's one thing I learned. And as someone who used to always go for presentations a bit shaky and what, by the way, if your hands shake while presenting, just don't hold anything. That's a tip I can give. But yeah, just be confident in your work. It's your project. So talk about what you feel you need to talk about. And sometimes they might not even ask you about that thing that you've picked up from someone else's project because maybe it's not as relevant to your project. Yeah, that's what I can say.
I also wanted to add something, Christine.
Francis.
Yeah, I would like to answer Paul. You know, students have a problem. You start your presentation by talking about the things you don't have. Like some people have that problem. The guy will start a presentation and say, as you can see, I don't have this section. Like, why are you talking about something you don't have? Like, let as you're presenting, you talk about only those things that you have, only those things. Gain the strength from discussing those things that you work hard on. You can't start your presentation in a negative. Like, that's doing a disservice. You might have, like Father said, you might have certain through other presentations and you saw something that someone is talking about and you don't have them, so you think that's what the tutors want. So you start by saying, I don't have this, but yeah, it's not helping. It's not helping you. So you just concentrate on those things that you start throughout the night to work on, and leave the rest to God. Yeah.
When Pauline talked about confidence, I remembered an incident when we were in third year. One of my good friends, Kaja Ronald, anyone who has been in a presentation with Dr. Semogeri knows that sometimes, okay, any lecture, you know, they can interject when you are in the middle of your presentation. Man, I saw the most amazing thing happen. This guy, Dr. Semogeri, was bombarding him with questions in the middle of his presentation. And he said, Doctor, with all due respect, I request you to let me finish. I would have pissed my pants if it were me, but it worked like a charm. The guy kept quiet and Kaja finished his presentation. You know, so it's true. I mean, try confidence. That was an amazing example for me. I can never forget till today.
No, you're fine. You can say that, and that's where we start from. You know. So someone in the comments says sometimes the things you do not have in your presentation may not be relevant to your presentation or design process. Then to build on what Francis said as well, architecture is not meant to be uniform. Longer scale presentations need to be unique as well. I have a long one. The last one before we move on is, hey mentors, how do I improve my research methods? There is this comment, shallow concept. I don't know who wants to take that. Francis, what do you do when they keep telling you your concept is a shallow concept?
I think it's interesting to know what that person is studying that has been considered shallow. Because personally, on my part, one of the differences I saw when we were being taught research methods in university for the degree is not the same way we are guided when we are doing our masters. So just key on what are you discussing as your topic so we can know what they're considering a shallow concept. So it's easy to guide when you know what the concept is that you're discussing.
I think she's asking about how to research. You know that like before you dive into a project, really advise go and research, look at case studies, watch YouTube videos, etc. etc. Even at that stage where you're just looking at concepts. So I don't think she's talking about, let's say, dissertations or action research writing. It's just how do you research precedents or concepts or things like that, so that you avoid a scenario where they're saying your stuff is shallow.
Okay.
Yeah, let me add something to that. Of course, context matters. This question is a bit broad, but one thing I found helpful to me about ideas or concepts in school was trying to abstract that idea that you have. If you look at it at face value, of course, it will stay at that, and then someone will be like, this is shallow, or you've not gone deep enough. Yeah, so I think when you're doing your research, try and look at whatever you discuss, whatever you're trying to research, or whatever your idea is. Try to look at it more than the face value it has. Try to abstract it. I think there's some lecturer at campus that used to tell us to try and abstract things. So for some people, that method is a bit. Some people don't like it, but I found it very helpful because she would tell us that you have this idea of yours. Can you try and draw something to represent it? You get, or can you try and make something to represent that idea? Because when you try and do that, you look at other aspects of that idea that you had not seen, because you now try to represent it in a different way. You get. So for some people, it's again too abstract that it confuses you. It helps when you try to abstract your ideas. If you have an idea, I think it helps to look out for maybe what paintings or artwork that try and represent what you're trying to think about. That will help, I believe. Also, just if, for example, most times in school we have one statement concept or one word concept. When you leave it at that, it will of course stay that. And then someone will say literal. That is literal. Yeah, but you try and just a dictionary description of whatever that is might give you a deeper understanding of it, and then help you broaden it a bit more. Yeah, so I hope I've helped whoever that question was from.
One of the things you can do is to do a scenario analysis. You have this concept word, yes. Look at the what if situations. What if it means this? What if it means that? What if it means the next thing possible? I remember one time we were doing studies in school where we were doing concepts based on our other classmates. So you find that someone could say that, yes, Christine is a bold character. If you've met Christine the first time, you might think, oh, is she really that bold? But you know, what you interpret about someone could mean communicating bold in a different light. It could be in the way she dresses, the way she speaks, or the way she communicates the knowledge that she has. So you need to look at the what if scenarios and assess if any of those scenarios is communicating what you want to communicate. And don't only look at the what ifs, look at the why. Because at the end of the day, you need to justify why your concept is along those lines. And then you'll find that there might be 3 out of 5 scenarios that actually delve into describing what your actual concept is. And then, yes, it will get you from looking like a shallow one-word person to you've thought and internalized this. You know what it is and what it is not. Then you'll have what they call a deep concept. Thank you.
So I appreciate how the interpretation of the concept has been made. So one of the things that I have learned over time is that normally some of the students, when you're told concept, there is we tend to lean more into interpretation. And I think Francis talked about how sometimes you're just at the surface of things. I won't go so much into that. But then like they are also different layers to your concept, because you're first identifying it, like this is what my concept is, and then there is the aspect of like justifying, because some of us are just like, oh yeah, it's like a pink flower and stuff, like why though? Like we might look at it as if it's something shallow, and yet your justification could have a deeper grounding. Maybe like this is a flower in the culture of the that is used during this, like you justify that concept that you've identified. Then in the interpretation, there is we have the artistic interpretation, whereby you're going to probably use like the elements and the principles of design to try and like graphically express this idea. But then like there is also like the philosophical interpretation, like beyond what this concept looks like, what else is it offering in terms of its intangible aspect. So you're not only looking at what form does this concept offer me, what now you're looking into, okay, if this pink flower represents this in this culture, what does that mean for my project? And that's when now I sort of go to the third stage, which is the translating of that concept. So now, of course, you had like a problem statement at the beginning of the semester. Sometimes we don't get to see how you're actually applying this concept. It seems like a freestanding idea, but if you're able to tell us like, okay, probably that ties into the justification, the relevance of this concept is actually this and this and this in regard to my project. And then in addition to that translating, I've observed how sometimes, okay, we have situations where people think the concept is only going to be form giving. So yes, you have this concept and then you're like, my project has to look complicated and all these things. But in translating that idea into your project, which starts with your problem statement, show us how it maybe influences the materiality, how it influences your spatial quality, how it influences all these parts of your project, so that you don't end on layout. Sometimes like the interaction of light, for instance, could have something to do with your project, so that you don't just give us those things of, oh, beautiful form. So if you can identify your concept, justify it, interpret it both artistically, which is a physical aspect, and philosophically, and then translate it into the different parts of your project, then it's going to honestly, by the time you go through all those levels of thinking about your idea, then you'll have managed to have like a deep concept. Thank you.
Thank you, guys. With that, I hope that has been helpful. I think it's Viola who asked that question. Someone commented that sometimes I find if you don't know how to deepen your research, the easiest way to do so would be to sidebar the tutor that was dissatisfied and ask why they believe it's shallow, and also ask for guidance on how to improve it. Yeah, but like this, it depends. So yes, approach your tutors after class and all that, but the way you do it matters. Sometimes students come and they are like, they've not taken the feedback at all. I think they think it's this sparring thing. And yet, honestly, your lecturers, like, they want the best for you. Most lecturers, other people who don't, I don't know what's going on. So when we give you feedback, it's, we want you to improve. So if you come asking for clarification, understand that you're in extra time for a lecturer. So your tone cannot be, especially if you want help, your tone cannot be different. Why you like some people just don't know how to work with other people's emotions. Ask calmly, like, oh, you said this, what does it mean? I'm just looking for extra guidance, etc. As opposed to, why would you? Don't go with pushback on someone who doesn't have to listen to you. So thank you so much to all of the mentors for this particular session. Thank you for your time. Thank you for your insights. They have been really, really good. So I completely appreciate that. I wish you all the very best in each of your practices and all your endeavors. For the students, I hope you take some of this advice to heart. I don't know if the mentors are open to being reached out to in case a person needs some extra help. I guess you can find all of them on LinkedIn. You have their phone name, so you can search them there. Yes. What else? I think the next session that we have is going to be on graphics and presentation, because that's another thing that was very highly requested, that we look at graphics and presentations. And I know many people struggle with that, especially students. So for the next mentorship session, we shall kind of focus on that. So especially for the mentees, please look out for that. So again, thank you so much for this. I'm going to close the session, and you can all have a very good rest of the morning.